Flying in Canada's north was an education. It had been drilled into me to put all my gels and liquids in a Ziploc bag, so I did it for security that didn't exist. As I watched the pilots load my luggage, I thought ahead to the town we were traveling to. Deline is the only community on the shores of the world's 8th largest lake, called the Great Bear. It's a fly-in only community, and this view explains why so many towns in the Northwest Territories have no roads in or out. The cost of constructing bridges over the abundant waterways would be astronomical. Deline is only 100 kilometers south of the Arctic Circle, and its biggest draw is the fishing. The Great Bear Lake holds world records for lake trout and Arctic grayling. We were told you can't come to this town and not fish, so we gave it a try.
Hey, Morris.
Hi.
Thanks for agreeing to take us out today. Good to see you.
My pleasure.
Our guide Morris has fished here for most of his life. Even though it was the middle of July, the lake was so cold you had to seriously bundle up.
So how do you choose a spot? Like, how do you know? Like, why not just fish right out of town?
There's more fish and there'll be more biting, huh?
Okay. It's a heavily populated metropolis right here for fish.
See.
I got a good feeling about this area. My fish senses are tingling.
Well, Morris and I's fish sense must have been off because after our first hopeful strike, the fish just weren't biting.
Except for the fish. It's looking real good. So here we are at the end of another afternoon of fishing. We've been fishing now for 3.5 hours, and we got nothing. Zero, zilch. But there's a reason. Morris?
The ice just moved away, so the water's still cold for the fish to come in to feed on the shores. So it's too early yet, so that's why. Okay, good enough. That's good enough.
The middle of July and the ice has just finished melting. Well, despite our lack of success, much of the community here of 650 does live off the land, sharing their take of both hunting and fishing, as evidenced by the spoils displayed throughout town. But we weren't really here to fish. We had an appointment with a very special group of women. This prayer meeting is a lifesaver for these women. There's only one church in this more than 90% Catholic town, and for these Protestant women, meeting together is a source of strength and support.
I feel really good when a lot of them come together, and that's the way they're going to become stronger, is when they come together and they hear our problems and we pray for one another. Then it really encourages me. God can do miracles.
Bernadette Tanaton is the rock of this group, and for good reason. Her steady faith drew many of these women into relationship with God, but her life didn't start out that way.
I just had a knowledge of God, but nobody ever told me that. Like, I heard them talking about Jesus, that he died on a cross, but not as a personal relationship, nothing like that.
Bernadette believed life was about doing whatever you wanted, but she says living that way made her miserable.
After I got married, the few years was really awful, very violent, abusive. My kids were younger too, and still I went out and party a lot and gamble a lot, and I wasn't a really good role model for my children.
She was homesick one morning when she started watching a television program called Tribal Trails. They were talking about how Jesus can change a life. She decided to give them a call.
I said I wanted a new life, so we did a sinner's prayer over the phone. From then on, I really started to look at my own life and how I was living, and that I really wanted to follow Jesus, and if I had to follow Jesus, then my life has to change.
She says it was a process, but the smoking, gambling, drinking, and abuse stopped.
2 Corinthians chapter 5:17 says, "For if a man belongs to Christ, he is a new person. The old life is gone, new life has begun." And I really believe that, because it really changed my life. But this new life is wonderful. I'm really happy.
Everyone noticed the changes in her, especially her family.
I had many experience where they say like, something happened, and I try to tell them that Jesus is the answer, and you try to look all over a place for it, but no, you can't find it in drinking, gambling, drugs. You can't find it in it. And after that I went to treatment centers and yet no, there was still no peace. But when I really came to the Lord, finally there is peace.
It was watching Bernadette and others whose lives were changed by God that really impacted Marlene Tucho.
Those two were different. The way they were living, they changed. They used to have so much in their life. Now it's all gone. It's like when you see them, you see peace. You could just see the peace on their face, and I was looking for that.
She prayed the same prayer as Bernadette, committing her life to God. Gambling, drinking, and smoking soon went by the wayside, but deeper changes were to follow.
I used to be a really, really angry person. I couldn't stand beside somebody else who would talk to me in a loud voice. I would get angry right away. Right away, I'll slash at him or her. And I said, this is not right. You can say that. I would say that. And I was really bad in controlling. That controlling person is no longer there. My husband would always say, what happened to you? Because he would just hate me when I control.
Looking back, she says giving God control of her life was the best decision she's ever made.
And I'm so thankful today because God gave me a new life. And it's just so awesome if people can understand they need Jesus in their life. That's the answer that I have, is Jesus is the answer for everything. But I truly believe that he was the one who changed my life for me. I never did anything. I asked him for help.
Pauline Roach encountered Bernadette, her aunt, at one of the lowest points in her life.
And she started to talk to me about how the Lord can change my life. How she found the Lord, how it changed her life. She ended up talking to me in the morning. I don't know what happened, but something just struck me right there. I was tired of partying. I was tired of, smoking. And, my husband and I had problems because of drinking. We never, we fought it all the time when we drank. I wanted that life.
That conversation started her on a spiritual journey that slowly helped set her free from addictions. But over the next few years, she was to lose many of her family members to those same addictions.
I think I went up to the ridge, just kind of really quiet, and I sat there. Because there was so much alcohol in the community with your families, your relations and stuff like that. And I went up there to my ridge. I just wept and cried. There was so much pain in the community that I told God to just come into my heart and just let it go. Letting go, it was the hardest. That was the hardest. Exactly.
Now on the road to healing, Pauline says she hopes for a better life for her kids. And she's deeply grateful to Bernadette, the family member who reached out to her when she needed it most.
She's a God-given person. She touched many lives. She's a good example for the community. Seeing her, you want you to make changes in your life too. I don't know, if she didn't come in that door that morning, I don't know where I would be today.
Temptations are everywhere in these small northern communities, and these women say they've had to stay away from old acquaintances in order to solidify the changes they're pursuing. But it's the steadfast friendship and support they've found from these new friends that gives them the strength to carry on. In Deline, Northwest Territories, Cheryl Weber, 100 Huntley Street.